All right, folks, the market building a real nice head of steam ahead of tomorrow's jobs report, and investors are rooting for a lower number, for the number to come in below consensus. And obviously, that's weird, right? I mean, it seems counterintuitive and even downright un-American. But then again, investors just simply taking their clue from the Federal Reserve. Joining me now, economist and author of Permanent Distortion, Nomi Prins. Nomi, you recently wrote that the Fed should be promoting good jobs numbers, but why aren't they?
Because the Fed has put itself in this box where it equates fighting inflation with fighting the job market, i.e. fighting people's ability to make enough money to support themselves and to match their cost of living, which currently right now is rising for lower income Americans by a quicker rate than it was during the pandemic.
It's just so nuts. And then there's this old school about wages and inflation and the relationship to wages and inflation. I thought they were getting rid of it, but apparently they haven't. So in September, a huge chunk of the jobs came from the lowest paying sector, right? Leisure. And then after that was federal government jobs. Does the Fed even bother to understand the composition of this data? If we give a whole bunch of leisure jobs, that's not inflationary.
No, that's exactly right, Charles. And I don't think they have. I don't think they do. They look at the figure at the top line to indicate whether or not their inflation fighting monetary policy tightening has been working or not. And they can't really control a lot of the elements that actually factor into inflation, like the cost of fuel, what happens in the Middle East, what happens with BRICS Plus, what happens in general with supply. They have no control over that. So what they talk about are big numbers in the labor market. And this was the one time that actually Powell did not talk about how hot the labor market was multiple times during his post-FOMC announcement speech, because it's irrational to expect that lower income, like you said, those service jobs, people coming into the bottom echelons of the wage force, have the ability to keep up with current inflation, which maybe it's coming down a tick, maybe it isn't, but the reality is their prices, their cost of living relative to their wages continues to go up. It's not the right thing to look at.
So I want to talk about the Fed, because Jay Powell begins all of these speeches about knowing and trying to help the middle class. And from 71 to 2021, the top 10% saw income go up 63%. The bottom 20%, only 22%. The top 10% have 70% of the wealth. And so when I see the Fed hiking rates, I know that rich people own these bonds. They're going to make more money. Poor people are going to pay higher rents, higher auto loans, higher credit card loans. It seems like an assault on the middle class and the poor. And there's got to be a better way for the Fed to approach this problem.
Yeah, by getting out of really hurting those people. I mean, the reality is, like you said, Charles, we have record high credit card debt. We have record high total household debt. The Fed knows these numbers. They are watching these numbers. They give out reports from the New York Fed on these numbers. When interest rates go higher, the debt that these people are holding actually is more costly to service. The government actually also has issues with servicing that debt at more expensive rates, but they can effectively borrow more. The printing press can continue going. The regular person on the street is carrying a greater debt load at a greater cost to them. And that inhibits not just American families, but our overall economy.
Nomi, I got less than a minute, so we got to be real tight here. But in your book, Permanent Distortions, you've written about all of this stuff, the divide between financial markets, the real economy, the free market starting to vanish, this new world order coming in, maybe responsible for some of the geopolitical stuff we've seen around the world. Is there any way to stop it? It feels like like we can't stop this collision.
Well, that's why I call it permanent distortion,
right.
because this distortion between what was the printing of money to what now is a major geopolitical sort of expansion from that is not really stoppable. What the Fed can do is get out of the equation for now, keep this pause as a forever pause. But the reality is that right now, that distortion between real assets, the real market, and the cost of money and financial markets is going to increase.
Oh, boy. Nomi, great stuff. It's a tough message, but we need to hear it.